And I'm going to share my screen. And the thing is, that I'm going to use these from the library. There's some things. I'm just going to use one of the brush things one of the things that I've got on there to make this brush. So what I'm going to do is oh, I got to undo a couple things. All right. So I'm going to drag that into Photoshop now again. All right, so what I want to do is I want to isolate one of these things. This is going to be my brush. And I'm just going to pick this guy over here. And I guess I'll make it square. It doesn't have to be, but I'll make it square. And I'm going to do that by holding down Shift. I'll just make it square, and then I'm going to crop. I haven't showed you guys the crop tool. One of the things that I would encourage you guys to do when you're using the crop tool, there's this thing that says delete cropped pixels. I would leave that unchecked. Remember how I told you like it's important to work non-destructively? So if you delete cropped, if I had that checked and I did this and I've got this and then I went to crop it again, this would all be gone. And I just don't see a reason why you'd want to get, I mean, I guess to make their file size smaller, but I'd always just rather have the option of having all that information than not having it, you know? So it comes checked by default, and I would just encourage you to have it not checked. So image mode, why is this bitmap? No, it's RGB, I don't know why it says bitmap. But so what I'm going to do is I've got this cropped, and this is kind of going to be the make like a splatter brush or something like this from this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it like this because I want to show you that I'm going to pick up some of this this softness to it too. All right. So I'm just going to go over here and I'm going to go image, and I'm going to go, I'm sorry, edit and define brush preset. Okay, it's pretty easy. I'm going to just call this as 310. Okay, and you can see it's already selected as my default brush. So if I go back here and I create a color fill layer, and you can see I can just use this like a stamp, and then I've got I've got that as a brush, right? So, and you can see it's even got that. So let me make this darker so I can really see it. And I don't really like that one. So purple is a much better color. But you can see it's got that. Remember I said I wanted to preserve that sort of grayscale effect that I had going on in there, and there it is. I mean, that was easy, right? I just take something, define brush preset, and boom, it's great. And I can just use that. Now I can use that. Let's see, I had some other things in here that so I got this thing going on, and I could use this. I'm over here in the mask, and I could use this to add texture to this. I mean, maybe we don't want that that big splurch in the middle, but I mean, this isn't about making a good illustration right now. This is just about me showing you what you can do with it. But so now I got this texture that I can just use, and I can add to it. And you know, this is like an ink splatter, but it could do anything. I could make a brush for so this Portland thing. So I actually don't have to. There was a reason why I cropped in before, but yeah, I don't have to. I can just define a brush here. So define brush preset, and then I'll just call it Portland. And here we got Portland brush now. And so I don't know why I'd want to use that, but maybe I would, you know, but I just want to show you that you can make a brush out of anything. And that's what we kind of made right here is kind of like a stamp brush. And that's kind of cool. Like, but you maybe don't want a stamp brush, you know. Let me go to my brushes here. And so, where did I put those? Oh, they're down here. So I'm going to go back to this one here, and let me turn this off, and I'll go back to this. Okay, so what I want to maybe do is turn into a brush that I can kind of draw with. And so when I do that, that doesn't look very good, right? That, I mean, maybe you want that, you know, but I don't think that looks very good, or it doesn't really simulate anything. So what we want to do is we go into brush presets, all right, which is, that's brush presets, not brush presets, but I want to do brush, do I not have that? Brush settings is what I want. So here it goes. I guess I don't have that docked. So brush settings, and there's a lot of things that we can do, but the first thing I want to do is brush tip shape dynamics, okay? And so what I want to do is I can kind of do size jitter, and so that's going to make it seem less. But if I put the size jitter, jitter just means like it's going to change the size sort of randomly, all right? Now, I can make it so it does it by control. Like, so right now I could do by pen pressure, okay? And you saw when I did that, it makes it like that. So if I try it again, and I start light, and then I push down, and then I get light again, it gets thinner. So that's by pressure. But I could just do like off, and then and what that'll do is that'll just like they'll just make it random. So it just kind of randomly will jitter. That's still not good enough. Oh, because when I turned it to off, it did. So I'll do this, and then let me do it again. And now you can see like it's, well, it's not great, but it's a little bit better than it was as far as like not looking so digital. Okay. Well, I am going to do size jitter, but I'm going to do pen pressure. Okay. So I like, I want it to do with my pen. I want it to be like how much pressure I'm doing. Okay. And so, but the next thing is scattering. Okay. I think scattering is going to help this too. I'm going to turn the scatter on a little bit. Okay. And let's take a look at that. Okay. Okay. So that's looking a lot more interesting. It doesn't seem so digital. So this is just giving some random scatter to it. You see it, it's like, I think this would be a cooler brush if it didn't have that triangle-y thing in the center, but it's still kind of cool, you know. But that's what your scattering does. Your scattering, you can see a preview of what's going to happen on there. The scattering, it does just what it says on the tin. It scatters it around just randomly a little bit. And then shape dynamics. Another thing you can do is, which I like, is angle jitter. That's going to rotate things a little bit too. So if I turn that like up to, let's see, turn that way up, and what happens is, I'm on it. Somehow I said "Hey Siri" in there, and I don't remember saying "Hey Siri." So I'm going to fill this, get rid of this so that I can try it again, and now I'll try, and now it's even more interesting. You can see, like, I mean, I don't know what's that exactly useful for. I don't know. We could go back to, I don't know. It's still pretty fun, you know. But we're creating this like jittery thing with it. Okay, so it's rotating. So it didn't feel so. So now these triangles, they don't seem so similar, because if I turn the size jitter off, or the angle jitter, you can see that they're all kind of very similar. But if I just make it rotate a little bit, they feel more random, you know. And now it's feeling a lot less digital. And I mean, I don't know where you'd find a pattern like this, but it's kind of fun. And the thing is, like, what I want to do is I want to show you guys the tools, and then I want you guys to be able to go and experiment with it and have fun and do weird things and like surprise yourself and get weird with it, you know. So that's that's shape dynamics. I think that's the most important one. And then text, the scattering, that's the it kind of scattered a little bit. If I take the scattering down and then we try it, it's I don't know, it's kind of interesting that way too. But you can take the same brush and you can do a lot of different things to it. And if you like what you've got, you can just go down here and create a new one by just hitting that, and it'll save these as a new preset. And then so texture is something that you can add as well. And so texture, you can select a texture from, like, remember we made a texture before? We made some textures. Well, now we can add a texture to this, and let's see, I'm gonna try that. And so it's these triangles, and you can see there's like a triangle-y thing in there. Let me change that to something else. Let's say, what's that? No, that's not really doing anything. Let's see. But you can add like a, is that? I think it's just two. It's adding a little bit. You can see the texture's different than it was over there, at least, you know. And so now it's giving it a sort of like, not pretty fun. Maybe I could crank my scattering up. Maybe we'll see it a little bit better. Yeah, I don't know. There's something fun going on. If I zoom it in, like, it's got some kind of funky feel to it. But you can add texture to it, and that's a really great thing to be able to do. I kind of liked it when it was the triangles. I got like kind of double triangle. So I got like this kind of double triangle thing. So maybe this is some sort of alien camouflage or something that goes on in aliens armor. I don't know, it looks kind of cool. But you know, again, have fun with it. You can also do a dual brush, and so that gives it like, you can pick another brush thing and it can overlap. That's really cool. Color dynamics. So that's something that like it'll go with your foreground and your background color. So let me just create a new. And so like if let's see, color dynamics, foreground, background, let's do like 50%. And see that? See, it's kind of like got a little bit of the foreground, a little bit of the background. And with, you know, that's kind of something you get maybe when you're doing like watercolor or something like that, you know, where you get a little bit, sometimes it's a little bit of like some paint you had before. And so you can have some kind of cool, fun, like color. I mean, I don't know what this is, but I'll tell you what it isn't. It's not something that anyone else has, you know, because we just made it. You know, we're just sitting here right now making this thing. It's completely unique. I mean, it's one of those things like, I defy you to try and replicate it, you know. And so you want unique textures, you want unique process, something that makes you stylistically feel like, you know, this is a way of like, by creating your own brushes and using and knowing how to use the tools and just experimenting and playing around and taking that time to do that, you're going to find that your work is going to get a lot more, you know, you have more tools to play with and you'll understand them. So I'm not a person who really loves the color dynamic thing, but it's pretty cool. I know it's working. Okay, so some of this stuff's like with the angle of attack on your brush, you kind of like can move your brush around. I don't find that stuff super useful. The X tilt and the Y tilt. I'm just not a person who likes to do that with my hands. I don't use it, but you can. One of the things you can do too is you can grab any other brush. So if I go down to my brushes and I pick one of these Kyle's brushes, so say rough dry, let's see what this, and I can go through here, I can be like, well, what's he got going on in here? So he's got a dual brush going, he's got this other brush tip in it, he's got this transfer thing going. You can even like take it and mess it up. So you know, here we got it, and I can go into scattering and I can make it scattery. And so I can take a brush I already like and I can customize it just a little bit to make it a little bit my own, right? So let me go back to what it was. Okay, I had no scatter. And this is what it looked like before. Here, wait. This is what it looks like by default. Okay, that's pretty cool. And then I turn on some scattering, and let's see what it looks like. I'm gonna try and follow the same like path. And so like with that, it's kind of cool because like it's much more of a it's one of those things that I could play it a lot more of a randomy texture where I'm just kind of making it look, you know, that scattering, it just helps me create a little bit of texture. And so you don't have to just make your own brushes, which as you saw is super easy. All right, it literally took me like 30 seconds to make my own brush. All right, and then it also took me like 2 seconds to take a brush that already existed and adapt it a little bit better for what I might want to use it for. So I grabbed a brush that already had a nice texture, and I just scattered it a little bit so that I could, you know, maybe I just wanted a little bit more subtle texture, you know, where it's all over the place instead of just in this line. And as we go through here, I could add my own texture to it too, right? So so I'll see what it looks like with those triangles. Well, it's not really picking it up too well, but oh, maybe change the scale a little bit. No, I'm not really seeing it, but I'm not really seeing it in there, but it's pretty cool anyway. Oh, maybe I take the dual brush off. Oh, look at that dual brush. That really changes it. So you know, you can go through here, and it's one of those things that like I kind of feel like I could just talk at you guys and tell you what everything does, but you're never going to remember it. You know, I think the top like the top 5 are the ones that I use the most. But what I would tell you guys to do is to just kind of go through and play around with it, you know, and it's kind of intuitive what they mean, you know. I think you can kind of figure it out, but I want you guys to understand that it's not super hard to do. You just have to, you know, play around with it a little bit. It's not like making brushes isn't some sort of forbidden knowledge that's only hidden deep within like Adobe. You can do a lot of cool things with it. You know, if I go back to that the brush, if I go to the brush here, and I don't want that one. I want that one they did with the Portland. So the Portland one, you know, like who knows what I wonder if I could make it like some kind of really cool like brush, and just throw some scattering on it, and shape dynamics and angle jitter, and let's see what this looks like. See if I can use this as an actual like brush. I don't know. I'm not sure why I'd want to make this thing, but just with that Portland thing, it looks kind of like an inchworm or something, or I don't know, some really gross caterpillar. But it's just made from that Portland brush. Who knows what you could do? You could do all kinds of fun things with it, you know. So so anyway, that's how you do one in Photoshop. You guys have any questions about that right now? Like I said, pretty simple, pretty easy to do. And then how to make a brush in Illustrator. And so we go over to Illustrator. For this one, I'm going to use a different. Thing. So what I probably should have done was clean this up in Photoshop before I brought it in here. And should I do that? I'm gonna take this into Photoshop anyway, and I'm gonna go back to Photoshop, and I'm going to show you what I mean about clean it up. So I just like do like a levels, and you don't have to do this, and I'll show you. I'm not going to do it on this one, but with this you can kind of like, what I didn't do on that first one was I didn't really do anything crazy with it. I just sort of did what you see is what you get, right? But with this you can with this or with levels or something, I'm going to actually do, you can see I can just clean it up. So I can make it sort of what you see is what you get. You know, this kind of looks like that. Or I could do like curves. And let me see what happens with curves. If I do something really crazy with curves, like, and then I'll do this down here right now. Try to make it really crazy here. Trying to get it so that I got like some really weird blowouts. Yeah, maybe something like that, and then I clean it up with levels. I don't know, this looks kind of bizarre. Maybe that's what I want. I don't know. You could play around with this and get some sort of inverted things of what you were doing. My point is, like, you don't have to be sort of stuck with what you had. You can make some crazy things that you wouldn't expect from this, and then import those as a brush. Like I could make this a brush now. It would be a really weird brush, but who knows? Maybe you want a really weird brush. But I could just, you know, clean it up this way, where I'm like, I'm just making it nicer. But we should be able to handle it no problem in Illustrator. When you're using image trace, and I don't recommend image trace, to be honest. Like it usually looks image tracey. A lot of people, what they'll do is they'll try and bring their inked work right into Illustrator and just click on image trace and think it looks good. It does not look good. Okay. If you're going to use image trace to do that, to make your inks in there, first of all, I wonder why you're bringing your inks into Illustrator anyway to do that. You're better off just leaving them in Photoshop and working on it there. But if you absolutely have to have like some inks that you did, and they need to be on the side of a truck, you know, so they need to be vector, then there's some things you do. First thing I would do is I would clean it up and make sure that it's as solid and nicely done as you can here in Illustrator. I mean in Photoshop, so that when you bring it into Illustrator, it's already close to what you want. Okay, but once you're in Illustrator, okay, you click on image trace. All right. And then what I want is what happened to my, I want to see this, I want this part. So over here, this like the thing that's going to tell you the, you know, your advanced settings and stuff. And so if I just want in black and white, I could use default, but I might want to change that. And I can go to advanced because we're advanced users, and we can move these things around. Now, it's one of those things that like, I can tell you that you know, these things like paths, so less paths, okay, like that's going to be like less of fidelity, right? So and then like corners, like how the corner, you can move these around, you kind of see like how these things feel, if they feel right. Noise is like when it's at a gray area, will it blur the things around it? You know, I know that it's going to make it feel rougher when I bring the noise down. But anyway, you play with these sliders until you get it to a place where you like. Now, one of the things that you may be tempted, because you just want the blacks, to do the overlapping, okay? But don't do that, because it creates these hollow fills for white areas that you don't want. Okay, so just do it this way, and I'm going to show you how to get rid of the white afterwards. All right, so just use this method. Create fills. That's what we want, not strokes. Okay, and then we don't have to. Don't do ignore white either. Ignore white is going to cause another problem. We'll just get rid of the white in a second. Okay, so no. Ignore white is going to still have the paths of the white, but they're just going to be empty. And then you won't be able to find them. It'll be really, every once in a while, you'll be grabbing one of these empty paths, and it's going to be a real nightmare. So don't do that, although it seems like it's a nice thing to do. And when you get it all the way you like it and it looks right, then you can just hit expand. Okay, now I promise you I'll tell you how to get rid of the whites. And this is how to do that, all right? So I'm going to double click on it, or I can just do isolate mode. It's right up here. I can click that, or I can just double click on it. I double clicked on it. And so now I'm in isolation mode. Whatever I do is going to not affect the rest of my thing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the direct select to select anything that's white. Just one thing, usually the background's really easy. And what I'm going to do is go over here. I'm going to select, this is similar objects. Okay, so I'm going to do that. Sometimes you might want to have to do just white, but I just hit, it should do everything by default. Let's see. So select similar objects. So I selected everything that's white. And I know that I've got everything that's white because there's not a question mark over here on my palette. It says it's white. So I know I got everything that's white. And I'm just going to hit delete on my keyboard and all the white's gone. And now I know everything that's, and to double check that and to make sure they don't have any empty paths that are just empty paths with like no fill, I can select it with the direct select, with the group select tool. And you can see it's black. There's no question mark either. It means that there's paths in there. Everything in there is black. And so that's what I want. Now I've got my line work. And that would work just as well if you had like an inked drawing or something like that. But make sure you just don't use default. Okay, default just doesn't look good. All right, and I can always tell when someone used default on there. And also, don't think that you're not going to have to go in here and clean up some of these lines. You know, so you're like, okay, this is if it's artwork that you're trying to put in here. So like right there is kind of a janky thing. I can use N, which is the remember N is pencil, and I can do that to like smooth some of these lines, correct some of these lines if I want. I'm holding down Alt to smooth it. And if it's like here and I'm like, oh, I want it to be more pointy, it should be more pointy like that. I can just like do that and add a point to it. And so this can be really useful in cleaning it up, okay? You can clean up in Photoshop too first, and you'll find like you'll get good results maybe there too. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to show you guys how to create a brush in Illustrator. So what I'm going to do is, and this is super easy too. So I've got this this thing. I got it selected, so I might as well use that. And so I'm going to go to Object. So here I can just create from. I was trying to show like where, but since I never use, I'll usually use the where is it? Anyway, you can do it right from the brush palette. That's what you normally do, which is here. Brushes. Okay, so new brush. Okay, so I'm just gonna, I've got that selected, new brush. I want, before I did an art brush and scatter brush and stuff like that, this time I do want a calligraphic brush. I'm just gonna hit okay. Oh no, I don't want that, sorry. I was wrong. I do want an art brush. Here we go. And let me bring this down here. So here we've got the art brush options. And remember before, I think I made like a flower and it told me the direction. I want to make sure the direction's that way. It doesn't make any sense if my direction's that way, I think. So, and I want to stretch to fit stroke length. That seems all right. And my method of coloring is tints, yeah. If I start with black. So here's my brush, okay? It's kind of a squiggly wiggly thing. But now I can draw with this brush. Make sure I use my brush to draw with it. And I can do this. And there's my brush. Then I've got this cool brush that I made, you know. This one's a little bit more interesting. I'm going to try and select this guy. Wait. Try and select this. I'm going to make a brush out of that. So again, we just go over to my brushes, new brush, art brush. I'm just going to leave everything. I'm not going to worry about it. Oh, do tints again. Okay, tints, okay. And now I got this brush. And I can, I shouldn't have selected that brush while I was on it. I do that all the time. So it applied the brush to the brush stroke that I was harvesting. And that's not fun. So yeah, get a new brush and see what this thing looks like. Oh, no, I want to do this one. And look at that painterly cool guy there. I'm not sure exactly what I used that for, but what I do know is that it's a brush that I made and nobody else has. And so if I want to add that to my artwork, it's just going to feel a lot more like Rory did it, then I just use some default brush. And it's really easy to make. But this is just ways to make like new kind of brushes and some cool stuff to add some texture or, you know, depth or something to your pieces. All right. Do you guys have any questions about that? Okay, I'm going to stop recording.